So it is a competitor. And Japan is now viewing Africa in strategic terms, which I think is quite new to be doing so explicitly. But Japan doesn't want to go head to head, aggressively pushing back on China. It's a bit more subtle than that.
What is Japan's foreign policy position towards Africa? Well, joining me to discuss this is Robert Ward, who is the Director of Geo-Economics and the Japan Chair at the International Institute for Security Studies. Robert joins us from the United Kingdom today. Robert, could you tell our viewers, how has Japanese foreign policy evolved under new Prime Minister Suga?
Suga is, in terms of foreign policy, is superficially anyway, sort of continuity of the previous Prime Minister, Abe Shinzo, who was there since 2012. So Suga has big shoes to fill in terms of foreign policy, and he's not really made significant changes, certainly superficially. He's kept the foreign minister, for example, from Abe's last cabinet. He has his first visit abroad was to Vietnam and Indonesia. And that was, in many respects, a deliberate echoing of Abe Shinzo's own first visit in his second administration, which was to the same countries. Like Abe as well, he's emphasizing the role of ASEAN in Japan's foreign policy. ASEAN, of course, very important as a proxy battlefield, if you like, between China, the US, and Japan for influence, in terms of contesting for influence. He's also very importantly, and this is very important in how this relates to Africa, he's also continued Abe's emphasis on the free and open Indo-Pacific, known as FOIP in Japan, not the most catchy of acronyms, but very important as an organizing framework for Japanese foreign policy. Also interesting that a number of other countries have joined the FOIP, the Indo-Pacific way of thinking, although each one has its different emphases. This FOIP concept is very broad. It includes the Pacific, but it also includes the Indian Ocean, the Indo-Pacific region, and that overlaps into Africa. I think the big difference between Suga and Abe is the situation that Suga finds himself in. Abe enjoyed a number of years of quite good economic growth. He enjoyed a lot of electoral success. He was very much in control of his of his party, of the domestic political scene. And he was also, very importantly for foreign policy, able to indulge in personal diplomacy. He visited, I think he made about 80 trips in his years in power between 2012 and 2020. And of course, Suga, with COVID, has not been able to go to many places at all. So there's an issue of the situation and also bandwidth, because Japan, like many other countries, is being hit badly by COVID. It had its worst recession since the Second World War last year. This year is also going to be difficult. So Suga has many different things to focus on, the most important of which, of course, is for him electorally, the domestic economy.
So Robert, does Japan have a coherent diplomatic and commercial strategy in terms of its approach to Africa?
So Japan's policy towards Africa for many decades has been largely oriented around ODA, around development assistance. And Japan has been under the radar. I think it's not got as much credit as it should have done for its work in Africa in terms of, I suppose, water provision, development assistance, infrastructure building, and so on. It's been less active, certainly less active than China in Africa in terms of developing the commercial possibilities of the continent. Now, clearly, the rise of the middle class, all of this is now very important for many countries in terms of how they serve Africa's growing consumer needs. But Japan has been largely focused around one or two areas, notably automotives, clearly a big area of export for. A big important export area for Japan. The interesting shift, I think, has come again with the second Abe administration, started in 2012, as I said, to view Africa more in terms of how it fits into Japan's strategic interests. So I talked about the free and open Indo-Pacific concept, FOIP. It was announced, actually, the FOIP concept was announced at the TICAD 6 conference in Kenya, very important, very symbolically announced within Africa. And this was a really important strategic statement that actually Japan now viewed its strategic interests, not just in terms of through development aid, through commercial opportunities and so on, but trying to create an organizing framework for how it viewed the region, as I said, which goes straight into Africa. Also, I think is worth mentioning, although I don't think much has come of it yet, is the Asia-Africa Growth Corridor, an initiative along with India to try and sort of unlock the potential of the Africa-Asia relationship. I think one of the measures of this sort of new strategic view that Tokyo has of Africa was in Foreign Minister Motegi's visits to Mozambique, Mauritius, and South Africa at the end of last year. Now, like all of us, Motegi didn't go to very many places last year, but it was a very important point that he was making, I think, to visit Africa, these countries. Mozambique for the gas, Mauritius for the oil spill, but Mauritius is also in China's sights. So there's an FTA with China in train at the moment, and China is also seeking to try to push back a bit on Japan's Indo-Pacific view, and of course South Africa, because it's the giant of the region, important strategically for Japan to be there.
So Robert, China has been very involved in the African continent in terms of natural resources and infrastructure development. Does Japan see itself in direct competition with China on the African continent?
Japan is in a difficult position with regard to China. China, as for many countries, is now Japan's most important export market. It's its most important source of imports. So Japan and China are very much linked economically. However, China is also viewed. Tokyo views China as its most important security threat. So there's economic interdependence, but there's also the threat from China to Japan, whether it's territorial threat, whether it's in cyber, whether it's the sort of pure military threat from China. There's all sorts of reasons why Japan is worried about China. But it's also, Japan needs to keep the US on board, because the US is Japan's most important security guarantor. Without the US security umbrella, Japan is really very vulnerable within Asia. So when Japan's looking at China, unlike some countries, it can't go head to head with China strategically, openly. So what Japan tries to, because of its interconnectedness and because of its concerns about the economy. So what Japan tries to do is to tread a sort of more of a subtle line by locating its foreign policy push. And again, this free and open Indo-Pacific thing is very important. Within a framework of values, within a framework of quality, things that implicitly push back on China, particularly on the Belt and Road, but actually don't do openly. And with the free and open Indo-Pacific concept, I mean, it's a bit of a slippery construction because it's not quite sure where it starts and where it ends. But the beauty of it, I think, is it is open to everybody, including China. So how Japan within Africa, for example, is trying to, and Asia, many countries in ASEAN and elsewhere in Asia, how Japan is trying to flex its influence is to provide, I think, an alternative to China for smaller countries, because China's economic weight is colossal, but Japan, because it's also a major power, can offer an alternative in terms of investment, in terms of as an export market, perhaps in some cases, and so on. So Japan's trying to sort of provide an alternative to China as a way of dealing with China's competition. The Belt and Road Initiative, Japan stood aside from the Belt and Road Initiative like the US has. But Japan, again, is part of this desire to be trying to contain China, but open to China as well. With the Belt and Road Initiative, Japan has said it's open to projects in third countries where the standards and the values meet those of Japan, and by inference, those of the West. So it is a competitor. and Japan is now viewing Africa in strategic terms, which I think is quite new to be doing so explicitly. But Japan doesn't want to go head to head, aggressively pushing back on China. It's a bit more subtle than that.
Well, thanks very much, Robert. It will certainly be interesting to see how Japan projects its soft power onto Africa and more broadly onto the rest of the world. My name is David Ansara. If you enjoyed this content, please do give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and also check out the link in the description below to our 30-day free trial. Until next time, take care.